Welcome back. This video will explain how to use the Soap Notes reporting module. Okay, well, I've given an overview of the Soap Notes area. Let's go ahead and start using it and see how it works in real life. So I'm on the start screen here, and I just want to show you that I've added a couple of comments here. I can, for example, click a button and add something here. The reason I'm doing that is that I just wanted to show you in the Soap Notes area we can pull this in from the start screen so we don't have to do double entry. We'll start with the Soap Notes area under the introduction. And as you may have seen before, I can insert the default comments and change something about that if desired. I can insert the demographic comments and say that the patient came in for any number of different reasons. I'll just put something in like that. And I can insert audiogram comments from the start screen by clicking that button right there. So that makes it just a little bit easier. Then I can move on to recommendations and insert default comments again, or let's clear that, or choose from the drop-down list of choices. Now I can also dictate in here. I can turn on my Dragon Naturally Speaking, or using the FileMaker Go 17 app on the iPad or the iPhone, I can also enter information by dictating to Siri, period. I just turned off my microphone and just wanted to show you that that's just another way to do that. Again, you may have renamed the FDA tab or insert the default comments, or you may simply put in what is atypical. So we may say that this happened but nothing else. So then we'll go to our history area, insert default comments, or enter additional information. If you want to make it a new paragraph, then go ahead and click that first, and then that does that. And then let's go ahead and clear that, and once again choose maybe with a return and a tab, close that, and let's try just a couple of those. So notice this is a slightly different kind of bullet point, and I'll put a couple lines down there and choose a different bullet point, maybe this one here. And once again we'll choose something from the list, and that's a slightly different kind of bullet point that's not indented as much. So let's continue. We'll go to Otoscopy, and I can insert from the start screen. I had already entered that information, so there it is. But I could also insert my default comments or insert from the drop-down list here. Going to, by the way, this one here is just a common insert comments reflecting clear bilaterally. In other words, that may be your typical response, so you can put that in as well. So here we can insert defaults, we can insert audiometric results like that, and that pulls it from the air conduction screen. Let's just go take a look at that, and this will pull in some information based on these fields here. Let's go back to Audiology and insert audiogram results bilaterally is just another common phrase that you may want to use. And finally, with the headphones, as you may have seen, if I put in additional information, I could have clicked that right there, but I didn't fill in all that much information in my sample here. We'll continue, go to the speech area, and again, default, or I could say word recognition here. This was bilateral, MCL, LDL, or UCL. I can put that in and just continue. I don't have to actually close that. I can just click the admittance button and it'll close for me. So once again, defaults, or enter any desired information by clicking the appropriate buttons, going on to otoacoustic emissions, and again you can set those up any way you want by clicking this button right here, and that'll set up your choices. So we'll continue, special tests, medications. You can set up all your own medications here, and I'll just put in something randomly there. We'll go to vestibular, and of course you can skip any of these if they don't make sense. We'll insert some default comments. We'll go to hearing aids, and here I can insert default, which I don't have any, but I could suggest this or this. And again, these may not be appropriate for your needs. These are just kind of samples, but you can fill in quite a bit of information. Let's look at our drop-down list here. So just as a test here, sorry you can't see that. Let me put it within the window here. Notice how that's not just a normal sentence. It's more than a normal sentence. So I can paste in quite a bit of information into that field, and then pull that information in with a single click. That's what I've done here. And we're finally ready to go to the send area. So once I'm at the send area, I'd like to explain this just a little bit. I can build that report by just clicking that button right there, and it puts it in the order that we designed, and that was introduction, then recommendations, then FDA, etc. I'll explain quickly why do we put recommendations second instead of at the end. After researching this quite a bit when we built the module, a lot of ENTs have told us that they like to have recommendations towards the beginning because they're often very busy, and even though they appreciate a lot of the text that's in a report, they may not have time to read it, but they do want to get to the recommendations, and it helps if it's at the beginning of the report. So you can decide which order you want. Let's go ahead and clear that. For example, I could put introduction, then history, then otoscopy, and it will put those in whatever order I want, but I can also just click, let's go back here, I did that wrong. I could put the introduction here, and then history, and then audiology, and then end it with recommendations. So excuse me, I did that wrong before. But as you can see, it's in the order I want it. If you're going to do it that way all the time, then just ask us for help and we'll rearrange things for you as far as the final output. But perhaps the easiest thing to do is simply click the button right here, this tab, click here to create a report to the physician for all completed categories. If you skip a category, then it ignores it. If you have something in the category, it puts it in a bold print like that, so it kind of stands out in the report. Now, once I've created that report, I can click I can edit this further if desired, and I can click this button here, and it says the SOAP note was entered as a chart note. So I basically can send that report to the home screen, and it becomes a chart note. I can also click one of these buttons here. Let's look at this one first. This allows me to assign a physician to make sure that my report's going to go to the correct physician. I can click here to see some additional information. Do I want my audiogram, if I am going to include it, do I want it with a gradient? Do I want to hide the photograph of the patient if I had one? Do I want to hide the audiogram? Let's not do that, and I'll show you that in a minute. If I want to put a date other than today for the report, if I want to title it something other than audiometric report, and let's see, the physician or the patient one, it's the same thing. So you could title those two different things if desired. And again, the number of returns after the category title, right now we have it set to 2. I think that makes more sense as far as giving you plenty of white space, and try it each way and see what you think. Finally, you have a carbon copy and a title right there if you want to, for the person receiving the carbon copy. So that's under this I button right here. We can, before I get to the print icon, we can clean that, and that just means kind of removing leading and trailing spaces. It kind of cleans it up a little bit. And I can also click the edit button, which takes me to the actual report in case I need to modify something on that page. You hardly ever will do that, so you may want to ask us for help if you're going to modify the actual printed report. But let's take a quick look at this here. When I click that button, I'm presented with a few choices. Again, the date if other than today. I can preview the report. I can print it. I can print the full page audiogram along with it. I can print it, in other words, if I'm going to be mailing this. I can print a physician envelope if I'm going to mail it. I can turn it or print it into a PDF and store that on my desktop and move it somewhere else. I can archive it right to the patient's folder. If you're using electronic medical records, the document storage system, then it will archive that PDF with a click. You may have seen that same button on the home screen if you're showing the audiometric panel. We can fax that to the physician using eFax, MyFax, MetroFax. I think we've discussed that in another video, but you have to have some kind of a faxing system set up. I use MyFax, and just by clicking that button, it will send it to the fax machine of the designated physician without having to dial a phone number. It's about $10 a month from different companies who do that. And I can email that to the physician. Again, you want to make sure that perhaps you have permission from the patient to be able to send private health information, or check with your HIPAA privacy officer to make sure that you're doing things appropriately. Down here, it says I can shift click to clear my choices, but by default it's going to include an audiogram with that, and you can either include a medical clearance form or not. So let's close that. Before I do it, let's just email that to the physician and show you how it would look. And it's telling me I don't really have permission for this patient. I'm going to do it anyway. And let's see if it comes up properly in my window here. So it goes right to the email of the physician that was assigned to that patient. It could have gone to the fax number of that physician as well. And here's the report, and then we've got some information down below. The bottom area doesn't have to include, as you've seen in other videos, but this is an option if you want a confidentiality notice and a privacy policy listed on your emails. So this is basically just saying, please see the attached document from Advanced Audiology. If you don't want to have the patient's name on there, that's fine. But right here, the subject itself, we do not include the patient's name. And that's for HIPAA reasons, but you may say, no, you want that to be on there, and we certainly can add it. Finally, let's take a look at that report. And you can only see so much on the screen here, but basically in the upper right area, the photograph of the patient is there. The physician may appreciate seeing that, but you can hide it if you don't want it there. A mini audiogram is right there, just to kind of give a quick overview. And as you can see, using the wheel on my mouse, I'm kind of scrolling through. Now, you're not seeing the entire page. Maybe I should make it a bit smaller here. But that's the report that we just created in a few seconds. It makes it real easy, and the assigned audiologist for that audiogram has his or her signature automatically displayed at the bottom of the report. So as I continue, then I have, again, you can't quite see all of it, so I'll make it a bit smaller. The letterhead, of course, is automatically put to the top of these forms based on the assigned office location. And this is a full-page audiogram, not much on it because it's just sample data. But I asked that be included in the email or the fax, and that may have value if you want to include a larger document. And then finally, I asked for a medical clearance form to be attached. And so it's real simple just to send that out. Let me close that down. And so that's all going right to the physician as a part of an email. Now I don't, let me go ahead and close that. It's reminding me that I probably should close that. So I'm going to press continue, and it records the fact that I did that. And I'll go ahead and close this window here. So that's how you would send a report to the physician. You can also build the same report here, but let's take a look at the difference here. As I scroll up and down this report, I can see somewhere in here, it's kind of a lot of information that I added there, but some of those, like here's an explanation to the patient. The physician wouldn't need to be have this explanation, but the patient rather may want to know, what does otoacoustic emissions mean? And so this is coming from the area that we talked about before, right here, an explanation. So it's automatically pulling that information. And so that's the primary difference when you send a report to a physician versus a patient, is each of these categories can, you don't have to have an explanation, but can include that explanation to make things a bit more clear for the patient. So just like on the other side, I can build that report. Let's clear that, not clean it. And I could do an introduction and then jump right to a recommendation or conclusion or whatever, and that's my whole report. I don't have to include everything on there. And then I can, just like before, I have some choices. So I can print that out and mail it to the patient. I can archive it. I can fax it to the patient. If a fax number is recorded under section A, one of the panels on there has the room for a fax number. Or I can email it directly to the patient. So you may or may not do that very often, but you have those two options. So that kind of gives you, this is a long video, but it gives you an idea of how the SOAP notes area can be used in general. And I'm going to cover this again very briefly in another area for the report, but I just wanted you to take a look at that real quick. And again, thank you for watching.